It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
These are the final seconds.
The lead in the fourth. Can they hold on to it?
That do or die time. And everything rides on one shot. But it isn't going to be that easy.
And it's a one-point game.
This is down to the wire.
They're going to try the three-pointer attempt.
One shot to take you to the top. One winner. This is clutch basketball. That's the NBA playoffs. That's game.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes here on the Draft Dudes podcast presented by Locked On. It's Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs and Chris Schubert from the Draft Network, and we are your hosts here on this Monday episode of the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Kyle, happy Monday and happy Dingus Day to you.
Dingus Day. I'm not aware of this.
Oh, yes, you are.
I am not, but I'm about to be. So enlighten me,
Shuby,
please.
you Dingus Day? No.
No.
Chris looked up like he saw
I had no
King
idea.
Ghidorah coming around the corner. So
Don't know who or what that is either.
Shout
Godzilla?
out to the
No.
Polish American community who may be listening today. It's a big holiday in Western New
my
York.
wife's Polish.
Oh, well, then you should know good and well what Dingus Day is.
I don't, though. So help me out so I can.
The tradition, there's a lot of things with the traditions, but the main one is that women, single women, take a pussy willow and they chase men with them and they hit them with it, and men carry water guns and squirt them.
This you're making this up.
I am not making this up. This is what happens. So this is fresh in my mind because I spent time with my grandparents this weekend, and they enlightened me on the full scope here.
Dingus
And
Day, huh?
Dingus Day, yeah. So why don't you grab a pussy willow, snatch one from the local bushes that you have, and chase your wife around? And I think as someone who is Polish, she will enjoy.
Noted.
What abyss did you just drag us into to start the week?
Yeah,
What-
we don't
what
even
was
have a lot of
that?
time
Set
today.
the tone for the whole week
I know,
here.
I know. Yeah. All right.
Well, do we want to talk a little football, or do we want
Please,
to talk more
please.
about Dingus Day?
Please let's talk. Let's talk football.
Today's show committed to the running back position. There are a trio of backs that are generally considered to be a cut above the rest. Obviously talking about Alabama's Najee Harris, Clemson's Travis Etienne, and North Carolina's Javonte Williams. But Joe, we're going to try and look at the top of the class, even beyond that, and kind of explore the dynamics of that second tier and where some of those guys might go, and can anybody challenge that, and also the dynamics of the deep dive on the top three guys, because depending on who you ask, you could get them slotted in any different degree of combinations.
I think we have it the same. We both have the same RB1.
Do we?
Travis Etienne.
Yes, it is Travis Etienne.
Okay. So, super productive career at Clemson, the all-time leading rusher in the ACC. And I think he's such an easy eval. Burst, acceleration, contact balance, receiving skills. I mean, this guy gets on his horse. He can eat up some turf. He can run away from guys. He's going to break pursuit angles. He's 215 pounds, 5'10", 215. Not a small back. He can sustain some contact. He can absorb guys, and he's physical. And he's a guy that I love as a receiving threat. He's going to make your passing game better. So that's, to me, those are really good traits. That's where I start the conversation with Travis Etienne. So before I talk about maybe some of my concerns, Kyle, do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, I think the thing that makes Travis running back one for me is it'd be a different story if he was 205 and he ran 4.4 flat. It'd be a different story if he didn't have the contact balance that he has. It'd be a different story if he didn't have the receiving development that he's shown. So it's like you get the size that you're looking for in a back that's going to take a high volume of your offense. But he has the explosiveness dynamic over both Najee and Javonte, and I think that's a divider for me personally that has me, and we grade each one of these guys through the same 10 traits, and it's not like I had a tiebreaker and used speed as a tiebreaker, but that speed and explosiveness really helped him in a couple of areas in which, maybe he was equal or slightly less footing than how I felt in certain areas of the position than Najee Harris and Javonte Williams.
If I had to poke a hole at Travis Etienne, I know this kind of sounds weird. It's not that I have questions about his vision. I kind of have questions about his decision-making and how he chooses to attack defenses. It feels like times there he gets the ball and he's so eager, he just goes. Then there's other times where I feel like he can be a little bit choosy with his holes, and it's not that he's avoiding contact or he's trying to widen runs. It's that I just want him to go quicker. So to me, it's like finding this balance between going and having some patience at times. I think he's got to find that balance and be a little bit more consistent with that decision-making, but I think he sees the field well. There are times though, when he's in space and he's loose, and that happens a lot when you watch him at Clemson. It feels like his only plan with the ball is that he's going to outrun everybody. And it's like, straight. Man, did you not anticipate this angle coming at you? Did you not have a plan here with the ball? I know that you can outrun most everybody, but there were times where he kind of got stuck without a plan. And you think about this player, it's like, wow, I can't believe that there's any creativity lacking at times, but you do see that occasionally in the open field.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's like the most bouncy, and like he doesn't have the most shimmy, but where it really shines with after contact and forcing missed tackles is just kind of like absorbing body blows and using his explosiveness to kind of like give you that counter blow in real time and force you to not get a good fit and wrap on him as a tackler. And then his contact balance is so good, so good that he just kind of parlays off of hits like a pinball. Yeah. But this is a back that does it at 6'2", 215 or whatever he is, instead of being one of those like 5'9", 208, 210 guys that like you'd expect that with that build. But Travis runs upright a little bit, but he still has that rare contact balance that makes you feel comfortable with creating chunk plays, even like you said, if he's not the most creative with the ball in his hands.
I really appreciate his growth as a pass catcher. Not something that was a strength of his game his first 2 years at Clemson. And for a guy that
understatement, by the way,
sure. It was bad. It was poor. It was the big red flag with him. The dude turned the corner. Like he admitted that he had the yips when he had to catch a football.
Ball. Yeah.
And then he said that, and then he answered the question in 2019, and then he like definitely answered the question in 2020. So there's some weirdness that he stayed at Clemson as long as he did, and I think that's an underrated thing that Dabo Swinney does. I think he recruits his own players as good as anyone in the country. But his growth as a pass catcher, I think, has been well worth him staying in school, and obviously the fact that he's been healthy and proven to be able to carry the load.
So let's talk about RB2. RB2 in this class is 1, 2, 3.
Javonte
Harris. Okay. See, a little discourse on the podcast on a Monday. This is great. They're divided by half a point for me.
Yeah, I think it's something like that for me too.
They're like stacked super close.
Yeah.
What was it about Javonte that had you ready to put him over Najee?
Well, with Najee, I mean, he's 6'2", 230, really good pass catcher. He might be the best pass catcher out of the three of these. I mean, just in terms of hands, ball skills, route running, believe it or not, very good. For me, man, I watched that Alabama offense, and I know we do this with quarterbacks, and especially Alabama quarterbacks, and we say, wow, he's got all these great players around him, and he just has to be the point guard for this offense. And in a way, Najee Harris, I just felt like there was so much space for him. And so he's 6'2", 230 pounds, kind of top heavy. I mean, you can chop him down at the legs. I thought he went down a little easier than I wanted him to at times. And I just don't get a great feel for his like burst and acceleration. And I thought there were times where he makes some really dynamic jump cuts and stuff, but I felt like there was just like, I wanted to see him moving a little bit quicker. And I thought that some of that run blocking he was afforded that created really, really big space for him, allowed him to hide some of what I think is average contact balance for a power back. And obviously I think a pedestrian athletic profile.
So for me, Najee's lateral ability, what was the divider with Javonte, because you talk about some of the lateral cuts that he makes and how fluid they are, and he can create really steep angles in his lower half to kind of break against his momentum. Javonte for me was kind of like the joystick's kind of broken around the outside fringe of it. So you can't turn it all the way to get like the real hard cuts that you're looking for. Almost like what we felt with Leonard Williams when he was coming out of LSU. And for Najee, like, he can stick his foot in the ground and really cut back against himself, in my opinion, better than Javonte Williams. And they're both similar backs in that they're both power runners. They're both really physical. They both win with size. So for me, Najee was the better pass catcher, and he was the guy who I trusted more to fit into different kind of systems to make cuts if he was required to press the line of scrimmage and then make a cut, versus Javonte Williams. If you're going to run straight gap power, then Javonte's probably going to be the guy that I would favor. So I think that's where it's important to kind of distinguish the traits, right? And then the skill sets. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's how I process both of these guys on tape.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over, but the NBA, college basketball, and NHL seasons are in full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV, and they have real-time updated odds and props on almost anything that you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds, and it's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. Head on over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit when you use our promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
Yeah, you're making sports bets, but are you making winning sports bets? To win consistently, you need an edge, research, analytics. It's a lot. Or you could let BetQL do the work for you. Every game, every potential bet, from winners and losers to all the sides and totals, line movement, player props, and more, all backed by BetQL's proven data and analytics. BetQL analyzes over 350,000 unique bets every year and rates each potential bet on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. A 5-star is definitely a smart bet. 1 star, smart money is staying away. BetQL even lets you sort all of today's games with the best options listed right there at the top of your screen. BetQL gives you access to the same information the pros use, the stuff the sportsbooks don't want you to see. It's time to bet smarter and beat the books with BetQL. Visit BetQL.com today and use promo code PODCAST for 20% off. That's 20% off with promo code PODCAST at BetQL.com.
So Kyle, where I think I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I spent the entire time answering your question about separating Harris and Williams, not really talking about Williams, but talking about
just slandering RB2 Najee Harris.
Not great.
That's cool.
That was not.
Yeah,
that's everything. A lot of times that I hate about these conversations. So I'm sorry that I did that. What I really like about Williams, and I'm not saying that Harris doesn't have these things, but things that I gravitate towards. I thought from a contact balance perspective, I liked him better. 5'10", 220, and versus 6'2", 230, where just that body composition and that top heaviness that comes with Najee Harris. I thought Javonte Williams was better through contact. And so for power style downhill runners, I felt like that really good trait that you love the most, I got it better from Williams. That's what I liked. There's a part of me for that style of runner that I really liked, that compact style. And so you mentioned some of that lateral stuff with Najee, and I recognize it's really good. And there's times where he can get some serious width, but I don't know that I value that as much. And I appreciate that more compact style that comes with Williams. I recognize that Harris definitely is a more accomplished receiver. I think Williams has baseline ability. I don't think he's going to be a super dynamic pass catcher, but he will handle what you need. But I just, when I look at them through the lens of these are downhill power runners, I feel like I got better contact balance from Williams. and more efficiency, economy of motion, and just a compact style runner that I appreciate.
So I think plenty of people, including us, have had plenty of conversations about the top three guys.
Yeah.
The rest of this class, I think you got a lot of scheme specificity. I think you got a lot of role specificity.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Michael Carter, Kenneth Gainwell next to on the board for you.
Yeah, that's right.
My question for you with Kenneth Gainwell is the league going to covet him the same way that we viewed him? Or are they going to try to, like, because he's not Antonio Gibson. Right?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have that physical profile.
I agree.
So we saw Antonio Gibson go in the early third round and had a terrific rookie season this past year. So I'm just curious from your perspective, not necessarily where we view Kenneth Gainwell, but will the league view Kenneth Gainwell the same way that we do, or is the door open for the league's RB5 to be somebody else?
Oh, I think the door's wide open. There's some really interesting dynamics with Kenny Gainwell that he's just kind of strange. I mean, he looks like a wide receiver. I don't know what he measured at his pro day, but he was listed like 5'11", 195. Really narrow build. And a guy that really hasn't played running back that much. Quarterback in high school, super productive that 1 year that he did play running back, but there's not a lot of experience there. And you might think of him better as a slot receiver. And to me, that kind of speaks to the versatility that he brings. And like, I'm not going to draft Kenneth Gainwell because I think he's going to be the focal point of my rushing attack. But as a multifaceted weapon for my offense, I really like what he brings to the table. So for me, it's that I can buy into, that it makes him a top 5 back in the class for me. But I can see the NFL taking a look at this player and being like, wow, you are kind of a strange study. You know, that you're missing some stuff here in the evaluation.
So let's bump it back up to Michael Carter then, and then we can come back. The other half of the North Carolina backfield. I think he's going to be a really successful projection into zone concepts because he has kind of that jitterbug style runner ability about him to kind of parlay cuts together and string things where he's constantly making adjustments on the fly. And he tested about what you would expect at the North Carolina Pro Day, maybe a little bit less in the long speed than I was expecting, but still plenty serviceable. It was a mid 4.5s time with his 40, and his agilities were really, really good. So that was really what popped with Michael Carter as kind of the other head of this two-headed rushing attack in North Carolina. And I think I'm comfortable with him in pass catching roles. So him as a third down guy early on and a rotational guy, I think you could use him as a featured runner, the guy who takes the majority of the reps. But I think like how North Carolina used him, I would like him a lot more and feel like I would be getting the best value if I had somebody to pair with him, so I wasn't asking him to do everything.
Yeah, I agree. The comp that I liked for him is Duke Johnson. And you think about the roles that Duke has filled, that's kind of what I see for Michael Carter. And maybe that sounds strange for a top 5 back in the class, but I think that says more about the class than it does Michael Carter. Carter's a nice player. There's just not, this isn't last year where you had Akers and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and John Taylor and Dobbins and all these really good running backs that you say, wow, that could be the focal point of a backfield. I mean, that conversation kind of ends after the top 3 and the rest are these really nice niche backs, but I don't know that you're finding like true starter traits. Need to tell you guys about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the planet. It has 18 amazing flavors. Some of my favorites are the caramel brownie, cookies and cream, lemon almond cheesecake is really good. They're all delicious. They're all covered in 100% chocolate, and they're soft and easy to chew. It's like eating a candy bar, but they're good for you. Built Bar is great for anyone who is health conscious. What do you want to lose weight, maintain weight, indulge in a delicious treat? You got to try these things. They're low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, and great for anyone on the keto diet. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your next order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
This episode is brought to you by HP Plus. In a world full of smart devices, shouldn't your printer be smart too? It is with HP Plus. These printers know when they're running low, so you always get the ink you need delivered right when you need it. Plus, you save up to 50% on ink, so you can print whatever you want, as much as you want, anytime you want. Huh, that is pretty smart. Get 6 free months of instant ink when you choose HP Plus. Conditions apply. Visit hp.com/smart for details.
So between Carter and Gainwell, it seems like you are interesting comp with Duke Johnson, but you still feel Carter is a better option as a runner in the backfield than what Gainwell is. Am I processing that correctly? Because these are both players that were in your region. So you know, you're the one that we've done the cross check on them, but you're the one that's kind of followed their trajectory from start to finish throughout this process.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Carter's the more natural runner. I think you can do more with Gainwell in terms of playing him flexed out and using him as a true receiver. So yeah, I definitely would agree with that statement. I wish we saw Gainwell play this year. I mean, obviously I'm not going to get into that decision, but for a guy that only really had 1 year of production, I'd have been interested to see how he acclimated to that offense this year. You know, kind of a new look. Mike Norvell's out. I mean, a lot of similarities that carried over, but you know, I just thought it would have been fun to at least see him in a different environment.
So I guess that's the that kind of goes back into talking about how the league will address Kenneth Gainwell. Is he didn't play last year. He did take a lot of reps from the slot. So Joe, if I were to look for a guy who would bump him out of the top 5, it would probably be Trey Sermon from Ohio State.
Yeah.
He came out, had a really good pro day as far as his explosive numbers, his athletic testing, transfer from Oklahoma, teams who run inside zone. Trey Sermon, they ran inside and split zone to death in the Big Ten championship game and the first round of the college football playoff. And I think Sermon ended up having like 550 yards rushing in those 2 games combined. Like, it was like 191 against Clemson and 300 and something against Northwestern. Just, you know, they gouged him up front. And this is a guy who is built really dense. He's got kind of that same thickness about him that you would expect for a guy who's your primary early down ball carrier. He's pretty unproven in the pass game, but he's got the build to be successful in pass protection. Mm-hmm. And his inside zone, where you're not asking him to press the boundary and get outside and cut off a guys. No, it's all inside. You can kind of just slow play, put your foot in the ground, explode and glow, trust your blocks to develop. Sermon is a guy for me who is probably a contender to get in there on round 3 and get his name called for. If you're a team that doesn't want to draft one of these running backs in the first round and they all end up going inside the top 36, 40 picks, whatever it is, you could come back and say, okay, well, we're still going to get our primary ball carrier in Trey Sermon, and you can probably get really good returns so long as you run inside zone and you really let him do the same things that Ohio State asked him to do.
Watch Trey Sermon play, and I thought to myself the whole time, like, yeah, this is a pro. This is a pro runner. Gets downhill, decisive, physical into contact, falls forward, grinds out yards. Like you said, you wish he had more in the pass game, but I just think he's going to be a very steady player. You're going to know what you're going to get, and he can shoulder a good chunk of what you want to do with your running backs.
So it's ironic. Ohio State seems to do this every year. Last year, J.K. Dobbins, before the draft process started, Dobbins had the down year in 2018. And it was like, oh, okay, like J.K. Dobbins kind of having a bounce back. And then it's like, oh, okay, J.K. Dobbins is pretty good. And it's like, oh, okay, J.K. Dobbins is really good. Well, Trey Sermon coming into the year, he didn't finish with the same peak that J.K. Dobbins did. But coming into the year, it was Trey Sermon, okay, whatever. And then, like, he really got his feet under him over the last 4 or 5 games that they played, starting with like the Michigan State game. He averaged like 11 yards per carry in the Michigan State game and the Northwestern game, back-to-back games. And then it was like, oh, okay, like he's kind of back from the injury and he transferred in from Oklahoma and he's getting comfortable running behind the offensive line after the first month of the season. And then you see the testing numbers. It's like, yeah, like he just keeps checking boxes. Okay. So kind of a similar ascension, just not quite as high of a peak for Trey Sermon, but Dobbins went 56. And I could very easily see Sermon sneaking into top 75, top 100.
Fun fact on Trey Sermon, averaged 7.4 yards per carry as a senior in high school. On a lot of carries, he had 166 carries. On 116 carries at Ohio State as a senior, 7.5 yards per attempt. So you got to respect the guy finishing his college career at Ohio State with a higher yards per carry than he did his last year in high school.
And that's going to be the high note, Joe. Good stat pool that we close today's show on, talking about the top 5 running backs in our pick to potentially sneak into the top 5 and bump Kenny Gainwell out of the picture. I'm Kyle Krabs with Joe Marino and Chris Schubert. We thank you guys, as always, for listening to the Draft Dudes podcast. We get a live stream tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel, youtube.com, the Draft Network. So make sure you check it out if you're interested, which you should be. It's a good time. We got the Panini live stream show. Chris, I got you. Chris wants to make sure I talk about our friends at Panini, and I'm here to tell you we got a deck of cards. We're going to pull one out. Whoever the name is on the card. Disappointed, Chris, you're not flashing the deck of cards at me there in the background. I see you in the producer studio back there. He always pulls out the cards and shows the cards. Here's our cards. So we don't know who's in the deck, but we react to the player on the card, and we do a 3-round mock to help that player and that team. So it's a really fun, cool concept brought to you by our friends over at Panini. So make sure you swing by, check it out. I am Kyle Krabs with Joe and Chris signing off. Thanks as always for listening to the Draft Dudes podcast.